Hey everybody, once again, I'm here with Darrell Mordente. This is part of our Bible series, and this is just a short little video to give you some of the resources that we've been talking about. As we told you, for this series, we've been doing research for over a year, and actually Darrell's been doing research for a lifetime probably, and has come across a lot of great information out there for us to go and to be able to find more information to go deeper on these topics. And we know as we were doing the messages that sometimes we just briefly mentioned it, so we wanted to take a moment on this video and once again just hit the highlights of these resources, give you maybe one sentence or two about each resource and why you may want to dig further into that one. I also want to point out that we do have a written document, a Word doc or so, on our website with all of these listed as well and all of the websites and the links that we'll be referring to. So hopefully that'll make it very easy for you to go and do some research. So we're going to start out with Darrell. Darrell, tell us what you recommend people go and read, and tell us why.
Okay, so in that resources document, you'll find 2 websites and 5 books that I've selected. In the first website is a site from Harvard University's chemistry department, where they have an animation of molecular robots that I think you'll find very exciting. The second website is the reasons.org website of Hugh Ross, which is a fabulous resource for getting answers to all kinds of scientific questions and what they mean to us as Christian believers. In terms of the books, first one I have is Darwin on Trial. This book can be read by anyone. You do not need a technical background, but it basically takes Darwin's theory of evolution and puts it into a trial type of an environment. It's written by Philip Johnson, who is a professor of law at Berkeley University. The second book is The Soul of Science. It's another book that you do not require a technical background in order to understand, but it's a fabulous book. It'll give you more information to what I talked about before about modern science really owing its beginnings to a Christian belief in a God of the Bible. Loaded with excellent material. I would recommend both of these books for any adult and for any high school student. If you have more of an inclination for a little more technical material, Darwin's Black Box by Dr. Behe is where you saw the flagellum motor, and there's also other discussions about the development of the eye. All of these things where Dr. Behe shows you that Darwin's random chance evolution just does not satisfy the scientists. So the next book is Why the Universe is the Way It Is. This is pretty technical, so I would recommend it for people with a technical background and an interest to understand how this universe is so finely tuned and why and in what ways. This book will describe that to you. And for those of you who've heard the phrase, well, there's hundreds of thousands of galaxies out there, each with hundreds of thousands of, or hundreds of millions of stars. Surely there's other planets out there with life on them. Well, there might be, and I'm not going to try to disprove that, but this book will show you how special the planet is. Improbable Planet by Hugh Ross. When you read this book, you will understand in a better way the sovereignty of God in how He planned this planet so specifically, and the numerous things that had to be done in a very special way.
And so as we were beginning to do some of the research, you recommended a particular book and author. And so I ended up grabbing 2 of his books, and I'm going to recommend both of those. I'm going to begin with this book by John Lennox, God's Undertaker Has Science Buried God? And this really helps answer a lot of the question about has science refuted the Bible? And so I want to recommend this to anyone. As you were pointing out, some of them are more technical than others. You can read this book without being a scientist. However, in order to make his case, he is super smart. He's a physicist and a mathematician, we believe. He teaches at Oxford. So you might have to read something twice as you get into that. Another book by John Lennox as well really gets into the whole idea of the 6-7 day argument. Is it literal in creation, 24-hour periods, or are those longer periods of time? What could that be? What does the Bible really say? And so this book, 7 Days That Divide the World by John Lennox, If you're really trying to figure out where you stand on the debate of young earth and old earth and any other version of those ideas of creation, really want to recommend this. It's actually a very short little book. The first 2 chapters especially are very easy to read and will really open your eyes. You have to read a little slower as you get into the details beyond that. On a similar note, but with a slightly different result on where to land, would be Genesis Unbound by John Selhammer, who is a Hebrew scholar and wants to start with what is the true meaning of the Hebrew words, and ends up with a theory called historic creationism. So again, if you're trying to figure out where you want to land on believing young earth, old earth, this is a third view that I'd encourage you to do some good research on. One thing that Darrell and I have said in the series and continue to believe is we're not here to give you a viewpoint that you need to go and believe. What we want to do is help you understand there is a lot of information so that you can make an informed decision. But our biggest thing is we want to make sure you understand that science and history is not in conflict with the Bible. And from there, we're going to allow you to form some of your own viewpoints. That's why I just recommended 2 books that actually would push back on each other. And then we'll change gears a little bit. I want to recommend a book called Bible Doctrine by Wayne Grudem. It's a little thick, but I don't want you to be scared off by that. It's written in many chapters, over 40 chapters, which means each chapter is actually closer to 10 pages each or so, which means you can just read it topically as you want to as you go through it. But in light of this series, he has a chapter on creation. He has a chapter on some of the scientific questions there, but he also has a couple of chapters on why the Bible is so important and talking through some of the difficulties of the Bible and some of those debates. And so, again, this is not very technical from a science standpoint. He brings it down to our level, so I want to recommend, if you're a believer, this is a great book for your life in general. And then finally, as we go further through the series, we're going to actually move away from the debate, or at least the perceived debate between science and the Bible. And we're going to be looking at some of history and archaeology, and then just some of the other difficulties. And so I think this is a great resource for anyone who is trying to question and answer, can I be intelligent and believe the Bible? This is called The Evidence That Demands a Verdict. My version is the newer version here, The New Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell. Highly recommend that. It is a large book, but again, has a lot to say about even the death and resurrection of Jesus and so many other things that are questioned about the Bible. So let's see, I also wanted to recommend, as I was recommending these 2 books, a website that would also point in a third view of creationism, and it's a website called answersingenesis.org. It's especially good for helping some students find some answers to questions about, what could be a way that science and the Bible plays together. But again, I will point out that between that website and these 2 books are 3, as well as what Darrell pointed out here with Hugh Ross, 3 major different views of how you can look at creation. And so hopefully you have a lot of resources now that you can go and continue to do your research whenever you feel challenged that in order to believe in the Bible, you're going to have to check your brains at the door. That's simply not true, and that is what this series has been about. So we hope this helps you, and as you go do your research, allow the Holy Spirit to direct you. God bless you.